Hi boys and girls, I hope you had a lovely Easter holiday, playing outside and going on walks and doing lovely things with your families. I had a lovely Easter. I did some work in my garden, I went on cycles, I went on walks, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to reading you stories again. So today, the story we're going to read is Mr. Jelly. So let's start. Poor Mr. Jelly was frightened of everything and anything. At the slightest little thing, he would quiver and tremble and shake and turn to jelly. So it's not really surprising to find that Mr. Jelly lives as far away from everyone as possible, in the middle of a wood, miles and miles from anywhere. This story begins one morning when Mr. Jelly was asleep. It was a beautiful autumn morning. The sun was shining, the leaves on the trees had turned to a glorious red, and the wind stirred gently in the treetops. A single leaf fell gently from the tree right outside Mr. Jelly's house, and quietly brushed against his bedroom window as it fell. Mr. Jelly woke with a start. "What's that terrible noise?" he cried. "Oh heavens, the house is falling down! Oh disaster, it's an earthquake! Oh calamity, it's the end of the world!" And he hid under the bedclothes, trembling with fright. What a silly thing to do! A leaf just fell and hit his window. "That's okay, Mr. Jelly, don't be nervous." After an hour, by which time he realised that his house wasn't falling down and there wasn't an earthquake and the world wasn't coming to an end, Mr. Jelly peeped out from under the bedclothes. "Phew," he said, "thank goodness for that." And he got up and he went downstairs and made his breakfast. That's him hiding under the bed before he was brave enough to come out. Mr. Jelly poured some cornflakes out of a packet into a bowl. Then he poured some milk on the cornflakes. Then he went to the cupboard to get some sugar. Crackle, crackle went the cornflakes in the milk. "Oh goodness gracious," cried Mr. Jelly, diving under the kitchen table. "Oh dear, I hear guns. Oh calamity, it's war." But of course it wasn't. Do you know what was making the crackle crackle? Yes, his cornflakes, well done. But of course it wasn't. And of course, Mr. Jelly eventually came out from under the table and ate up all. After breakfast, Mr. Jelly thought that he'd go for a walk. He was walking through the woods which surround his house when a worm poked his head out of the ground. "Morning," said the worm cheerfully to Mr. Jelly. Mr. Jelly nearly jumped out of his skin. "What?" he shouted. "Who's there?" And then he saw the worm. "Oh goodness heavens, it's a snake! Oh dear me, a man-eating snake! Oh calamity, I'm going to be eaten alive!" And he jumped up into a tree. It was just a little worm. Don't worry, Mr. Jelly, it's not a snake. He's a silly goose, isn't he? Very silly. "What a performance," commented the worm, and went back into his hole. The worm was just having a look. He didn't want to harm anybody. He couldn't anyway, he's too small. After an hour, Mr. Jelly felt brave enough to climb down from the tree and continue his walk. Eventually he came out the other side of the wood and into a field. Mr. Jelly glanced nervously around. It was an empty field. Or was it? Looks empty to me. In the long grass in the middle of the field, unseen by Mr. Jelly, there was a tramp enjoying a sleep in the autumn sunshine. Mr. Jelly picked his way cautiously through the grass. The tramp, fast asleep, snored. There he is, snoring away. shrieked Mr. Jelly. "It's a lion! I heard a growl. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, dear me, a lion. A huge lion with enormous teeth. A huge lion with sharp teeth that's going to bite me in two. A huge ferocious lion with enormous sharp teeth that's going to bite me in two, if not three." And he fainted. There he is. Poor Mr. Jelly. He fainted on the ground. All this commotion awakened the tramp, who yawned, stretched, sat up, and saw Mr. Jelly lying on the ground beside him. "Oh dear," he said, for he was kindly. "Oh dear," and he picked Mr. Jelly and placed him gently in the palm of his hand. Oh, that was a nice thing to do. He's going to help Mr. Jelly. Mr. Jelly came to and sat up, rubbing his eyes. Then he saw the tramp's face looking at him. "Oh, disaster!" he screamed. "Oh, calamity! It's a giant, an ogre! Oh, gracious! He's going to have me for breakfast!" My, said the tramp gently. "You're a nervous little chap, aren't you? What's your name?" "Mr. Jelly," stammered Mr. Jelly. "I used to be nervous like you," said the tramp, "but I learned how not to be. Would you like to tell me your secret?" "The secret, I mean?" Mr. Jelly quivered and shook and said, "Yes, please." "It's very simple," continued the tramp. "All you have to do is count up to 10, and you'll find whatever is frightening you isn't quite so frightening after all." Then he set Mr. Jelly gently down on the grass. "Remember," he said to Mr. Jelly, "just count to 10, and off he went." That's a good thing. Maybe the next time I'm scared, I'll try and count to 10 and see if I'm not scared anymore. Mr. Jelly thought that it would be a very good idea if he went home immediately. Back across the field he went, back through the woods he went. He was walking through the woods when he stepped on a twig. Snap went the twig. Mr. Jelly jumped twice his own height in terror. Now, what does he need to do? Count to 10. See if he does it. "What was that?" he shrieked. "That terrible snapping noise. It's a tree falling down that's going to crush me to pieces. Oh, calamity! It's a crocodile hiding in the bushes, snapping its teeth. Oh, disaster! It's a..." He stopped. He took a deep breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, he said. And then he saw that what had gone snap was a twig. A silly old twig. "Phew," he said. It worked! Mr. Jelly had almost reached his house when a leaf drifted gently down from a tree on top of him. "Help, police! Murder!" he screamed. "I'm being kidnapped! Oh, calamity! It's ruffians with guns. They're going to..." And he stopped. He took a deep breath and he... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well done. And then he saw that what had fallen on him was only a leaf. Nothing but a leaf. A stupid red leaf. "It works," he said out loud in amazement. That's twice he's used that trick now, and he's not as frightened at all. And do you know, it did work. After that moment, Mr. Jelly became a changed man. Well, you can see that by looking at him, can't you? I'll show you what he looks like now. He's very relaxed. He's not a nervous Nancy anymore. He never shrieks or shouts or screams or quivers or shakes or trembles anymore. And he never hides under the bedclothes anymore. Well, let's see if he does. You ready? Oh, there's no picture. Not very often anyway. That was a great story about Mr. Jelly. That's actually given me a thought to maybe make some jelly. Have you ever had jelly and ice cream? We had ice cream in our class before, but we didn't have jelly. We could make that when we're back in school. Red jelly or green jelly or orange jelly. We can talk about what colour is your favourite. So today we're going to sing a song, and it sounds a bit silly because it's a Christmas song, but we're going back over all the rhymes that we've done and we're now at Christmas. So the rhyme we're going to practice is, I'm a little Santa. So are you ready? I'll count to 3 and then I'll sing it and you can join in with me, okay? 1, 2, 3. I'm a little Santa, short and fat. Here's my beard and here's my sack. When it's Christmas Eve, I hop into my sleigh. With the ho, 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 I'm on my way. That was brilliant! Boys and girls, thank you for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow.